In our news bulletin for this evening, unexpected power cuts on Saturday night left the southern side of the island without power for almost a day. Taonga Niue hold a book launch for Margaret Pointer's new book detailing contact and history for Niue from 1774 to 1974. The Black Heart fishing competition returned some surprising catches, especially for one canoe fisherman who caught a massive fish yesterday. 350 Pacific hold a training session with local youth to contribute towards a regional campaign targeting engagement of grassroots communities in the fight against climate change. A sudden power cut just before midnight on Saturday evening left the southern side of the island without power for almost a day. Niue Power Corporation staff were quick to respond, looking to identify the cause of this unexpected power outage. Following some investigation, the problem was located that there were in fact two faults that required mending. The first fault was due to a jump switch on one of the power pole overhead lines at Kaimisi, and the second fault was with a power cable in between Tamgotonga and the scenic Matavai Resort. Power staff worked on repairs and power was restored by Sunday afternoon. The new cable between Tamgotonga and Matavai is now being utilized, and the corporation is looking at ways to minimize these unexpected cuts and are hoping that customers were not adversely affected. Yesterday, a book launch was held at Taonga Niue for Margaret Pointer's newest book detailing Niue's history of contact and change from 1774 to 1974. It has taken more than 5 years of research in Niue and New Zealand to collect information for the production of the book that was published in April of this year. The book has proven popular, selling out at the launch in Wellington, and copies sold yesterday have also sold out. According to Margaret Pointer, her historical background has enabled her to access and find the necessary information and images, but there have been some challenges during this process.
Research, you sort of start picking up clues. So I started in the National Library of New Zealand in Wellington, and especially in their research section, which is the Alexander Turnbull Library, and they have a really good Pacific collection. Some material is on microfilm, so there's material from Niue, for example the London Missionary Society records, they were microfilmed 40, 45, 50 years ago, and I've been able to read the microfilms. Then I started moving out of Wellington, and the most important place after Wellington was Auckland. Auckland University, Auckland Museum, Auckland Libraries. And gradually as you go along, you sort of get a lead onto something else, and you think, oh, I wonder if there can be something there. And of course I've made 2 trips to Niue specifically to work in the archives, and I just want to acknowledge the people at Taonga Niue, because the archives are basically in shipping containers, the papers, and they worked really hard to get out the papers that I wanted to look at weeks before I arrived. So that was very important. The images, I also got material from Australia, and then the images, I don't quite know how I've done it, but I just kept on searching on library catalogues and just thinking, now where would they be? So I was looking for things that might have belonged to the Reverend George Laws and Frank Laws, and obviously I thought their material would be in England, and it was. And so London University, Oxford University, the British Museum, the British Library, I found material on their catalogues that made me think, there might be something there. And gradually, I don't really know, but the photo search has gone on for the whole 6 years.
She says that the book is still an account from an European perspective, and there needs to be more history and voices from a Niuean perspective.
So I think there are always challenges, and that's what makes research so interesting. I guess the thing is that any historian, when they're looking at whatever their subject area, there are certain voices that are missing. And the challenge with this story is the Niuean voice. So the material that I'm looking at is largely written by Europeans, and it's a European perspective on Niue. But having said that, some of those Europeans in particular, I think, had a great empathy with the island. And when you look at the things that the Laws brothers wrote, Percy Smith, when he came here in 1901, immediately had a great rapport with the island and with the people. And so the things they wrote, I think, are really, really insightful and really, really, really helpful for Niueans to understand their history. But of course, we want more of the Niuean voice. So we need, there's that element of it, and so I guess my biggest challenge was to write in a way that didn't just sound like it was a Palangi voice. And I guess the time that I lived on the island, I really tried to get involved in everything in the island, and so I have a love of the island, which I hope comes through in the writing. I quite often turned things around. So I'd read an account written by a British naval captain in the 1850s, arriving off the coast of Niue for the first time in a big sailing vessel, a big man of war. And I'd turn it around and I'd think to myself, now, what would that look like to the Niueans waking up in the morning in Avoseli and looking out and seeing that on the horizon? How would Niueans have reacted to particular events? So I tried to do that, but obviously, you know, I'm not Niuean, so there's still more to be done by Niueans.
Taonga Niue has arranged for a history workshop to be held tomorrow that will hopefully enable more locals to consider writing and documenting their village and family histories. The Black Heart fishing competition that's spearheaded by the Tourism Office began last Friday for the canoes and charters. There were two divisions within the Black Heart competition, the canoe category and the boats category. The canoe category began on Friday and ended yesterday. According to Niue Tourism, initially the boat category was supposed to start on Saturday, but was deferred until Monday due to bad weather. Over 30 canoes participated in the three-day fishing competition from Friday until Monday, where the largest fish caught out on the canoes by Dimitri Viliamu was a massive 76-kilogram yellowfin tuna. According to Dimitri, he spent over 3 hours struggling to stay afloat and fighting to get the massive fish up on sea level, along with the assistance of a friend nearby who helped him. In the end, he prevailed, and nearby boats helped carry the fish to the wharf. The three-day anglers competition began yesterday with 2 local competitors and 10 international anglers, and that competition will continue until Wednesday. The Black Heart competition prize giving will be held on Thursday evening for both canoes and boats, where we will get a rundown of all the winners in each of the categories. Last Saturday, a training workshop to build the capacity for youth engagement and climate change leadership at grassroots level was held at the USB Niue Centre. Niue is one of 15 countries in the Pacific region with groups affiliated to 350.org and have had representatives in some of the regional and international actions. 350 Niue started as a collective of environmental enthusiasts in 2010, contributing to a call-out for images from all over the world towards climate change campaigns. Since then, it has grown to include a range of people in the community. We spoke to the 350 Pacific coordinator about the training and campaign for this year.
For us, for 350 Pacific, it's about using our traditions and our cultural strengths to fight the impacts of climate change for us. And, you know, as you know, for us, that means we're trying to highlight, you know, the impact of sea level rise, of our oceans becoming acidic, of salt getting into our soil, of extreme weather. And we're doing that in a way that makes sense for us locally, but also hoping to impact and challenge the decision makers of countries who are very heavily dependent on fossil fuel to look at what their dependence is doing to us. Our regional campaign this year involves our teams from throughout the Pacific preparing a mat. We have a mat weaving project which is around storytelling, and what we're trying to do this year is to collect stories of the impacts of climate change that are felt throughout our region, in particular by our grassroots communities, those who are very much at the front lines of climate change. We're going to collect these stories up, and using the traditions of our mat weaving, however that may look, throughout the Pacific, we'll take these stories anchored with our mats in an action that we plan to perform in Europe with the lead up to the talks in Paris in December.
The training session was open to youth interested in environmental or climate change causes to learn about how they can contribute to the campaign, especially as the Pacific.
For Pacific, our target audience is not, generally 350 is a youth-led grassroots movement, but for Pacific we very much, understand the importance and the value of our wider community. So we know that this project, because it leans into understanding our traditions and our culture, we encourage all and everyone, no matter what the age, no matter where you are, to be involved and be a part of this, because we know that without the blessings and the support of our elders, we can't go forward to do this work. A discussion with a group of young people from around Niue who are involved with youth communities or in different organisations. And we got to talk about what our plans are this year and the value and the importance of what we as a collective of Pacific Islands can do together. So hoping very much that Niue will be a part of 350 Pacific's work this year. And 350 Niue has been part of amazing campaigns that we've had. We've had representatives attend Global Power Shift in New Zealand back in 2012, Global Power Shift in Turkey in 2013, and last year we had representatives from 350 Niue join us in Australia. So this is just the next part of our journey.
The locally based 350 Niue group now have a mammoth task to finalise plans and work together to start collecting stories from the communities and documenting, as well as their mat making tour in time for the action in Europe in October. This will also be a lead up to the Global Leaders Climate Talks in Paris at the end of this year. Those are the stories that we have for you this evening. Do join us again for our next news bulletin on Thursday.